Hey, what's up everybody? Happy New Year. Today I'm going to be reviewing Doctor Strange. It was directed by Scott Derrickson and released November 4th, 2016. If you're not familiar with Doctor Strange, he's a brilliant neurosurgeon who loses the functions in his hands through a terrible car crash, and he has to go through surgeries to try to repair them, and once the surgeries fails him, he seeks Eastern medicine, which turns out to be the ancient one in a city called Kamartaj, which is a fictional city in Asia somewhere. If you're not familiar with Benedict Cumberbatch, he played Sherlock in the British series, he played Khan in Star Trek, he was in Zoolander too, he's done tons of stuff. Overall, the movie was pretty good for me, but I think there's just a couple things that could have been tweaked and made it better. But I think it was a success in bringing that whole sorcery world into the Marvel Universe. So first off, dislikes. I didn't like the fact that Doctor Strange was so arrogant at first before he becomes a sorcerer. When he's just a doctor in the hospital, he's such a dick.
I'm kind of a big deal.
You almost don't want him to obtain these powers and learn this knowledge that the Ancient One teaches him. That's why it's so satisfying that he gets kicked out at first before he gets to learn these things. The next thing I didn't like about it was the talk fighting scene between Strange and Mordo. Either talk or fight, don't do both. It reminded me of The Princess Bride in a way, where it's just like a hokey comedy. The next thing I didn't like was how Benedict Cumberbatch's voice sounded. He's a British actor, and maybe I'm just too aware of that, to where his American dialect just doesn't sound right. It almost sounds like voiceover, and or it almost sounds like Hugh Laurie is doing the voiceover for him in this movie at times, which is strange. The next thing I disliked about it was the fact that it was too tongue-in-cheek or too silly at times. Marvel does a great job at balancing the silliness with the serious, in my opinion, for the most part. I feel like it kind of leaned towards the silliness while leaning away from the seriousness in this one. There's a couple scenes where between Strange and Wong, he was just talking too much about his name, and it was kind of just like too tongue-in-cheek. But it might just be me, because there were a lot of other concepts going on in this film. You had the concept of playing with time, you had the sorcery aspect, you had the meditation, you had the astral projection. So that could have been a good balance for that. Next, let me tell you what I did like about it. The car crash was epic. The way he parked that car was something else. He's driving through the hills or the canyons, off the coast or something like that. And, he's trying to talk on the phone at the same time. And his shit goes flying right off the cliff. And his hands get caught in the steering wheel and it completely crushes his hands. Next thing I liked about it was the astral forms that they did, where the Ancient One popped him out of his person into his astral form. That whole scene was really cool. And the way they played with that, I think, worked well. And they succeeded, I think, with trying to bring that into the universe. The next thing I liked about it was the reference to time in the very beginning of the film. Strange, before becoming the sorcerer Doctor Strange, when he's just a medical doctor, he had these scenes where he would look at his watch, and there's a quote on the back of the watch that was kind of precursors to how time was going to play a factor later on, which it does, which brings me to my next like, where he uses the Agamotto to bring the pages back from the book that Caecilius took and sees the spells, and he learns about Dormammu, and he learns about the Ancient One and how she's taken power from that. Wong ends up telling him at the end of the film that, who wears an Infinity Stone around their neck like that. Doctor Strange is so unaware of it, but he's worthy of it, so that's very interesting. Like, who does that? You know what I mean? Who's fortunate enough or powerful enough or wise enough to be able to do stuff like that. So it showed his capabilities for sure. The next thing I liked was the cape scene. The cape saved his ass quite a bit in this film. This is Doctor Strange's first, introduction film, so he's kind of like Neo in the Matrix, running from agents still. He got some help from the cape. There's a scene where he's trying to fight somebody and he's not really ready yet, and he's trying to get shit together, and the cape is totally beating the shit out of this other guy. He wrapped himself around the head of this dude, and he's like beating his head on the wooden floor. So that was really entertaining. Speaking of Matrix, this movie has a Matrix feel in a way. It's a Matrix and Inception type of feel. With Inception, where the walls and worlds are folding and dimensions are being created within worlds, I guess you can say. The way this movie reminds me of the Matrix is some of the scenes where the Ancient One was training Doctor Strange seemed a lot like Morpheus training Neo. So that was kind of cool. If you dig those two movies, you're definitely going to like this one. And if you stuck around for the end credit scene, you'd see Doctor Strange talking to Thor, and Thor trying to find Loki and asking for Doctor Strange's help. and that's kind of like a precursor to the Thor Ragnarok movie that's coming out later this year. So not only is that going to be like a Thor movie, but there's going to be somewhat of a Planet Hulk movie. If you don't know what Planet Hulk is, that's based off of a comic book of Hulk where he goes to space on a whole solo thing and fights a bunch of guys in space and has his own little story. So they're pulling some of those stories from that and putting it into this Thor Ragnarok movie. So I'm definitely geeked about that. You know, you got Thor, Hulk, and Strange in the same movie. And also Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is coming out this year. But I'm not sure if Strange will be in that or not. He might have a cameo. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he was, but I wouldn't be surprised if he wasn't. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you saw it in 3D or if you saw it regular, which one did you like better? This movie had a lot of visual trippy effects in it, so 3D was definitely a good look. Also, I'm going to be doing John Wick next week, so watch out for that review. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good night. Peace.